House of EdTech, Episode 23.
Hi, everybody. This is Jessica Johnson, principal at Dodgeland in Wisconsin, and you are listening to the House of EdTech with Christopher Nesi.
The House of EdTech podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get your free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/houseofedtech. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi. The House of EdTech podcast explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing information that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose being, whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And again, welcome back inside the House of EdTech. Coming up in this episode, I have a great interview that I did with Rich Kiker, who is a Google certified trainer and all-around Google Apps for Education guru. I also have my EdTech Thought, and in this episode, my EdTech Thought revolves around paper.ly, so stick around for that as I share some insight and some interesting opinions on Paper.ly. I have my EdTech recommendation, and this episode is a 2-for-1 special. 1 episode of the House of EdTech and 2 fantastic EdTech recommendations. And of course, another installment of the House of EdTech VIP. But before I get to my featured content, first I do want to say thank you to listener Stacy Linz, and I hope I said that right. I know I probably had a 50-50 shot. Stacy recently shared some great feedback about the podcast with me via email, and I would like to give a old-fashioned radio shout-out to her 2 boys, Robbie and Richie, who also enjoy the House of EdTech. Thank you, Robbie and Richie, for encouraging your mom to only listen to the House of EdTech and no other podcast. I do appreciate that. I believe Stacy is coming to EdCamp, New Jersey, so I do look forward to meeting you later this month. That's going to be really fun. I'm recording this episode on Friday, November 7th, 2014, and yesterday I had the privilege of attending day 1 of the annual NJEA convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I had the pleasure of participating in a live edition of the Tech Educator podcast over on teachercast.net with Jeff Bradbury. And I don't think I've actually publicized it too much here on the podcast, but I am a regular contributor of that podcast. And you can always tune in live on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern over on teachercast.tv. It's a really cool podcast. It's live. It's video. On the broadcast yesterday for TeacherCast, we did like a live edition of Tech Educator, and we got to talk to some amazing educators and also a couple of really cool vendors and companies that were at the conference. And two of them, one was Dina Baumert, who is at Be Flourishing on Twitter, and she was a representative from the company Black Rocket, and Black Rocket is on Twitter at Black Rocket LLC and blackrocket.com. Black Rocket's a really cool company because what they do is they have designed a platform that allows students in all grade levels to put themselves into a video game that they design. My wife and I had the opportunity to go through that process at the convention. So actually later today or sometime in the next couple of days, we're going to get an email from Black Rocket that has a playable demo that my wife and I will appear in as the video game characters. So that's some really cool technology that's out there. And, Black Rocket was everywhere yesterday. I told Dina that I wouldn't be surprised if next year that it would be billed as the NJEA convention brought to you by Black Rocket. So that was really cool. And I'm actually looking forward to bringing Dina on the House of EdTech in a future episode to go into way more detail about Black Rocket and what it can do for your classroom, your students, and your school. So stay tuned for that in a future episode. Also be sure to check out the techeducatorpodcast.com for all the videos from yesterday from the convention that I did with Jeff. I had never done, live on location broadcasting before. So from my own experience listening to the radio, basically what I did was I kind of dipped into for those that are in the tri-state area, I kind of felt like Mike and the Mad Dog, or something more contemporary, like a Boomer and Carton, or any of the radio shows that go to like the Super Bowl and they're on like Radio Row, except Radio Row at the NJEA convention is just TeacherCast. So that was really cool to, be at the microphone and not really have a script, but, to be answering questions and trying to get people to come on and get to talk to them and have them share their story or their product, live. So that was really cool and I enjoyed it. I also got to meet a recent new follower on Twitter, Patricia Hillier. She is a Jersey Shore science teacher, and you can connect with her on Twitter. Her username is iHillier, IHILLYER. I also got to meet some really amazing educators and reconnect with some that I already know through Twitter. I got to meet Stephen Santilli, who is a principal from South Jersey, and he is on Twitter, SPS. Well, if you start to spell it, it sounds silly. He is SP Santilli, SANTILLI. I got to reconnect with Meredith Martin, who is a former House of EdTech VIP and hopefully a future House of EdTech guest. And she's on Twitter, and she is Geeky Teach on Twitter. I got to reconnect with Billy Krakauer, and he is W Krakauer on Twitter, WKRAKOWER. And I got to finally meet Dana Sorodiak. Congratulations to Dana, because she is now taking on a new role as the Chief Innovation Officer for the Newark Public Schools. And Dana can be found on Twitter, DSirodiak, DSIROTIK. And I also got to meet Mike Ritzius, who is the Associate Director of Professional Development for NJEA, and he's also one of the founding members of the entire EdCamp Foundation. So it was very cool to have a few minutes with Mike, and he's on Twitter, mritzius, RITZIUS. But enough about that. It was a lot of fun. Go check out techeducatorpodcast.com for all the videos and a more detailed recap. Not even a recap, but actual video footage from the day. So let's move on and let's head over to my featured content and my conversation with Google guru Rich Kiker. Rich holds a bachelor's from Holy Family University in Computer Management of Information Systems, and he also has his master's in education from Arcadia University. He is currently the Director of Online Learning for the Palisades School District in Pennsylvania, and he is a 2012 BAMI Awards Top 20 Educators in Social Media winner, and he's also recognized by NSBA's 20 to Watch in 2014. And if that didn't make him cool enough, he's also one of the top-rated Google Apps for Education trainers in the United States. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Rich Kiker.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me today.
It's going to be a good time because you are, in my opinion, the Google man. So this is going to be fantastic.
That's kind of you. I'm enjoying the Google guy moniker, although I think I'm only one of many of those, but it's certainly fun.
Well, you're the closest one and really the only one who I knew I could reach out to, so that also helps. So let's get right into this because, I've already pre-titled this episode, Google Apps for Education with Rich Kiker. So this is a big deal. So don't let me down. How'd you get into Google based on what you did in college and how you got into education? How does Rich get into Google?
Sure. So, early in my teaching career, early in my career, right out of college, I was more of a tech person, working in project planning and project management type roles. 9/11 happened and it instantly changed my life, right? I was hoping to find a way to go back to school for education. And most of the work I was doing at the time, unfortunately, was in the New York, New Jersey corridor. And it was a really, really trying time, I think, for everyone on earth, mostly. But as a result, you try to take the worst case scenarios and you try to make good out of them, right? So I turned around and my wife was, or my fiance at the time was studying education. I moved over to study education, started teaching, and then quickly realized that Google Apps back in, I don't even know, when I started using Google Solutions, probably 04, 05, but then when Google Apps emerged later in the decade, probably 06, 07, 08, that time frame, just how powerful they could be in my classroom. So as a classroom teacher, I started doing things with Google, early on with Google Earth, early on with Google Apps. When I was teaching, I taught technology seminar towards the end of my teaching career, which I left the classroom in 2010. I was spending an awful lot of time on inquiry-based, backwards design, student design projects, kids doing things like teaching themselves foreign languages as creativity projects and building touch sensor interfaces with open source software and just some really cool things that they were interested in. And it seemed like the model I was going for the model I was going for in the classroom was really close to the model that Google was promoting at the time, everything from 20% time and earlier versions of moonshot thinking and just going big. So I think that's the long story on how I started using Google tools myself in my education career.
That's fantastic. Now, real quick, what levels did you teach when you were a classroom teacher?
I taught K-12 computers. I taught middle level social studies and high school level social studies. And then I taught middle level math at one point as well. So pretty wide ranging.
Nice. Being a Google trainer, you have an affinity and an affection for Google, but I also know that, you're not a dumb man. So you realize that there are other tools out there that can, just as easily enhance what goes on in a classroom. But what makes Google so appealing? Oh,
I guess what's the lamest phrase I can come up to? If I had a nickel for every time somebody said to me, "I bet you hate Apple," right? Nothing could be further from the truth, right? I think obviously iPads are a glorious machine. It may go down as one of the most important machines in computing history. I really think it's important for us to understand that hardware and operating systems are wonderful, and some work great for certain situations, and some work great for other situations. But I think my affinity for Google, the love I have for the Google platform is that Google is really a complete ecosystem, right? And it's hard for us to realize right now that we're in the middle of an evolution, that we're moving away from static local products. You see companies like Adobe now rapidly developing to get to the web and just released a Chrome version of their Creative Suite.
I was very excited when I heard that news with Photoshop coming to Chromebooks.
They're not dummies, right? I mean, they realize that, if we have Adobe, for example, we have 500 million copies or however many copies of Photoshop they have out there, and something goes wrong, we have to push it out to 500 million devices. But if we can figure out a way to take this, use economies of scale, use the promise of the reduced costs for production of both storage and processing, boy, we could really maintain a much more reliable product in one location where the users come to the software. So the cloud is kind of becoming this space, and because of the cost, in fact, I was just reading a blog this week where in 1992, I think the cost of a gigabyte of storage was somewhere around $600. And in 2012, the cost of a gigabyte of storage was 3 cents. So Google now is looking at that, and not just Google, but many others. It just seems like they're the most robust and complete platform. And they're saying, we have this mantra that is to take the world's information, index it, archive it, and make it accessible to improve the entire human condition. And we can do that, giving it away for free to schools and both to K-12 schools. And while we're at it, now announce that we'll give free storage to every user, teacher, student, staff member along the way. And, I guess while we're doing that, our other teams will be doing things like the MAPS projects and releasing information from Jane Goodall to the universe to navigating your area, engaging kids in STEM with Made with Code and the Google Science Fair and this whole range of tools, right? And I'd love to give you a dashboard I have of the range of Google solutions, and maybe we can include it on the page for this broadcast or somehow get it to your audience.
Absolutely. I'm in lockstep with you on everything you said. I am a big fan of Google, and I do also agree that it works well with the other tools that are available to us as educators. Now, I don't know if this is the $1 million question or a softball question, but I'm going to throw it out to you based on what you just talked about. Why doesn't everybody use Google then?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, a lot of reasons. I probably can hit on a couple of the big ones. I think for a long time there's this fear of privacy, right? The fear that somehow Google makes 90% of its revenues through advertising, and somehow that was transferring to the K-12 platform, when really nothing could be further from the truth, right? And it's an education process right now. The privacy policy that's listed at google.com/edu is very, very clean, very concise, that there are no ads for students, that there are no archiving of data. No one's snooping around in Google Drive. In fact, they've even recently turned that technology completely off to even when that was a concern, the only product that could ever have been filtered or scanned would have been Gmail, which came turned off by default at one point. Well, recently and earlier this year, to just kind of end the conversation, Google went ahead and restructured their Gmail for EDU for K-12 so that there aren't even the possibility to turn ads on now. So a tech director can't even go in and find that option anymore. So they've really taken that off the table. So security, I think, was a big concern. I also think that there's this misconception that, or again, only due to lack of, we're probably doing a poor job in education of spreading the word. So we're constantly trying to figure out better ways to do, spreading the word. We're trying to find better ways to do that. We haven't been able to tell everybody, the Google suite of tools is free, that, businesses are using this. You don't need to fear that you're doing a disservice to your students. I just read last week, Google for Work, 1,800 companies a week are turning on Google for Work, and that this ability to thrive and operate in a platform agnostic world, right? So if I know how to do a word processing project in a Google Doc, there's a really strong likelihood that I'm about 90 or 95% of the way of figuring out any other word processor. So the fear of moving away from standard and what we know and what we believe to be safe.
It really just makes me scratch my head when, like earlier this year, they announced that, unlimited storage, not just the 15 or it was the 30 gigabytes of storage. It's unlimited. I know in my own district, we got an email earlier this year that said, make sure you're cleaning out your email because, just on the email side, you only have 250 megabytes of email storage for your account. And, districts still pay a lot of money for email storage, server space, and they spend so much money to have the control. And I'm sure you would agree, the money could be used for so many other things in education.
Yeah, and that's it, right? I mean, I believe incredibly right now, you look at both the Google suite of tools, which is completely free, mail, storage, productivity tools, websites, your calendar, the whole Google Apps suite. And then you look at that being free. You look at the cost of things like Chromebooks and the price point there, which is just absolutely astounding, and the ability to free up your tech. No schools are adding technicians, right? That's like, but yet we have 3-4 times as many devices as we did 10 years ago, the same number of techs. So their life has become really difficult. So you look at the Chromebooks and how easy they are to manage, and they don't need to be wiped and no antivirus, and they just turn on in 8-10 seconds. This is the product. This is the design. These are the things at Google that really get me thinking that way. It allows us to focus more on what I would consider the two most important things for schools to invest in, and that's access in terms of devices, whatever they decide that may be, and bandwidth, right? Because the bigger your pipe, the more competitive advantage you're giving to your kids. And I think we need to think that way. Stop buying static resources. Stop, investing in these huge print management solutions or whatever it may be, and move to these other dynamic spaces, right? Because if you have a fixed number of assets in the classroom from what we consider traditional instructional materials, with the web, not just Google, but with the web, we have really pretty much unlimited dynamic resources that are changing and updated and maintained. So it's a different way of thinking, and it's hard and it's scary, but it's the new world.
And there you go, taking a page from Apple, think different. And I don't even know if it's, thinking the same way, but being open to changing your thought when it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. When you have a compelling pressure to make change, you really have to think about it in terms of what's best for kids and not what am I most comfortable with. And right now, the compelling pressure is there. Our poor business managers these days are going out of their minds trying to account for every quarter and figure out, where they can buy a pack of pencils cheaper for 5 cents because our budgets are incredibly crushed. And, we can't change that. We can't, well, I guess there's certain things we can do to help support it, but, that's a little bit out of our control. We can just work with what we have.
Obviously, plenty of time to talk Google, but I'd also like to ask you about what you do, as you said, in your day job, in your role as Director of Online Learning. Talk a little bit about what you do in that position.
I've kind of evolved into, I think, like Director of Innovation. So we provide online channels. We provide multiple customized learning solutions for kids. High school kids can adapt their schedule and do internships, or if they're a few credits short and in danger of not graduating on time but they're doing good in their senior year, they can overschedule and, get a couple extra credits online to graduate on time. Students who might be homebound or have an illness or travel for sports or whatever it may be, there's all these little nuances that came out of being able to offer online components and of course, blended components. So that was early on the goal. Following that, I've started to put in cyber centers and these kind of centers of study that serve multi-purposes, not only for our kids to come in and have a space, but to we actually staff it with a technology savvy special ed teacher so they can support students across the district with technology differentiation and other strategies to engage learners, right? And they're kind of built for differentiation special ed teachers. I think they're really savvy at that skill set. And then doing things like supporting our maker spaces, figuring out STEM solutions, empowering our middle school teachers with coding on Android tablets, and figuring out now we're moving into creating immersive literacy rooms for our elementary schools and figuring out ways to extend the school day by keeping our libraries and labs open after school for centers for learning, however anybody wants to use it, kind of like hopefully a Starbucks feel for our kids, and just figuring out whatever that looks like. And now, of course, helping out and trying to follow along with the future ready plans for the nation, the Connect Ed movement, and just really staying attuned to what we want to do for the district and provide to the community.
And in this role, do you still get the opportunity to be in the classroom and work with teachers and interact with students, or do you not?
Sometimes. I mean, not as much as I used to, right? So I have that. I feel like it's like a void internally, because I think all teachers miss that if they leave the classroom. Fortunately, I do enough professional development that I get that intrinsic value filled, right? That I get to help people and help others. So I don't get to get into the classroom as much as I used to. I work remotely pretty often, but I do get in it, and it's a ton of fun. Just yesterday, I had an opportunity we were doing a film for the district, or recording a video, and I had an opportunity to go in. I was working with some kids, and it was really cool. And one of them said to me, "Hey, Mr. Kiker, I think you taught my brother, and he always talks about you." And I knew this kid who's in high school now. I met him and his parents when he was still running around in early elementary school in the hallways, going to practice and stuff. And now he's in high school. So we had a really good time talking and connecting with him and asking about his family and those kind of things. So I obviously that's some of the best things we do, and I enjoy that greatly. So when I can, I do. And then with our teachers, whatever I can do to support them. This year we try to support some of our tech leaders becoming Google certified. 6 or 7 of them are already Google educators, so they completed the process already, which I'm really proud of them for that. Yes, I get to do those kind of things. I also get to kind of train our administrative staff on ways to be connected educators and ways to provide opportunities for design thinking and all these kind of innovative strategies. And it feels good. It feels like things are going in the right direction, and I'm happy about that.
Now, you mentioned the professional development and the training you do, so that's a very nice segue into Kiker Learning, which is your company. Talk a little bit about what you do and what you offer to anybody who's interested.
When I left the classroom, one of my motivations there, my wife's a teacher and our children were getting school age, and we were trying to, we were faced with these struggles that every parent I think hits, and that's before school care and after school care, and is it the best thing for our family? How do we want to do this? And I just decided to quit my job one day, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But fortunately, I was already Google certified. I was already aligning myself pretty closely. I was doing a lot of online professional development courses for universities and continuing ed agencies here in Pennsylvania. And so I started there. I started scaling up what I did there, whatever it took to just get things rolling and get connected and continue to share what I was hoping was valuable to other teachers. I was hoping I had something to offer, and things like Twitter. I say this all the time. In fact, when I talk to sometimes I'll talk to business groups or like business organizations and other groups, and I'll say to them, I said, what, my confidence was spurred because of social networking, right? I didn't know that I had anything of value to offer until people on Twitter or people on LinkedIn were saying, "Hey man, thanks a lot. This is great." And then I thought, well, this is cool. Maybe I can share some of the things that I do, and maybe they are valuable. So that's how I got started. And then, spending a lot of time in your home state right now, New Jersey. In fact, I don't travel on planes too much these days because from New York to DC is a pretty populated area. and I'm right in the middle, just outside Philadelphia. So I spend most of my time in the corridor here helping the schools in this area.
Part of me thinks you should just move to New Jersey because you spend a lot of time here.
I do spend a lot of time in New Jersey. Fortunately, we have a family home in New Jersey as well. So I get to spend, if I'm really spending some time there, I can sleep overnight at family place. And thank goodness for that. I need that sometimes.
If somebody reaches out to you and they're like, hey, I want to bring Rich Kiker to Alabama, Rich Kiker is going to go?
Sure. I mean, I travel when needed to those locations. I try not to because, again, I'm an educator, not a businessman. I have this focus on family. So I try to take those jobs as seldomly as possible, I guess, just because I want to get to soccer practice and do all those cool things. So
this was going good until you mentioned soccer. So I'm going to turn off my soccer fans by saying I'm not a soccer guy.
How about baseball? We'll go baseball.
We can go baseball. That's fine.
Dance class, you pick it. So I think we're doing a lot of online stuff with Google too. So I'm still involved. We're deploying online courses. I'm involved with the Educational Collaborators, which is a great outfit here in the United States, well, around the globe. So we're deploying online solutions and doing a lot of things. So there's times when I'll be traveling. I got a couple of things I'll be heading out of the area in the next 6 months, but try to stay at home pretty often.
That's nice. Will we see you at EdCamp New Jersey coming up in November?
You know what? You will not, because the same day I think I'm running a Google certification boot camp. So I will not be there. I'll be somewhere. I think I have to look at my Google calendar, but I'll be somewhere in Pennsylvania running a certification camp.
Nice. And you also have, I know you're going to do one in North Jersey, because I've been plugging that event at the end of the podcast the last couple of episodes.
Oh, great. Yeah. So we have one coming up in North Jersey with kind of partner with the Evolving Educators, Scott Rocco, Billy Krakauer, and Brad Curry. Their group. They're planning it. I'm going to come in and do the certification component and get everybody in a place where they can become or feel comfortable to become Google educators. That's coming up in December. And then I have I have one in November here in PA, and then one in December in South Jersey as well at Stockton College. Again, we just finished one there a few weeks ago, and we have another one that I think is filled now, but we'll be offering more through Stockton and the EIRC as well.
What are some of your favorite Google tools that either you use and utilize personally, or that hands down you never forget to recommend them when you're talking with teachers?
On my Chrome browser, there's really three things that are pinned every day for me. It's my Gmail, it's my Google Calendar, which runs my life, and it is my TweetDeck to stay alive on Twitter. And then I usually will be on Google Plus, although I have Chrome extensions that allow me to interface there, so I don't necessarily pin that as much. They're the ones that I just can't do without all day long, without question. I need them because I run so many things with those accounts. Some of the more creative opportunities that I want to make sure teachers are aware of live in these kind of arms of Google, like the Google Cultural Institute, where Googles are taking the Street View technology and moving it into museums and, scanning those locations, archiving the work in these museums, and doing those kind of things. In addition to that, of course, the excitement for where Street View may be taking us, the idea that we may be able to walk into a Street View and instead of just seeing the building as you're walking down Broad Street, let's say, if there's a public building there or City Hall, you can walk inside and tour the inside of the building as well. From there, I think Chrome Experiments is really powerful to show the future of the web and what's happening, at least on the Chrome browser. Of course, some other things and the new tools like Made with Code and the Lego Builder from Google.
I love the Lego Builder. I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
I'm a Lego guy from way back, and it's you never lose a piece.
It's spectacular, right? I mean, it's spectacular. So I think some of those more creative tools are really powerful. And right now, I think the Chrome Web Store for anyone using Google Apps for Education, for using Chrome browser or Chromebooks, is just an intense tool. We could be here all day. I think this tool I give you, this dashboard, will be a little bit better for your audience to explore. It'll certainly give them some opportunities to see and read a little bit more about the range of tools.
That sounds great. So you definitely have to get that to me.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's actually a Symbaloo. It's a Symbaloo that I kind of maintain, and I have it embedded. I'll get it here for you while we're talking now. I have it embedded on my site, and I will add tiles to the Symbaloo for everything that comes out from Google, or all the new tools, the complete range. Google's a very networked organization. It's hard to see a hierarchy. So I go ahead and just kind of maintain my own. Some are Chrome extensions. Some are tools that are using the Google APIs, like the Street View technology. There's a great game online called GeoGuessr that seems to be a huge hit with everyone. So I have that on there. Although Google doesn't necessarily build that tool, it does interact with other Google products. So this dashboard is probably pretty helpful for folks. So I'll make sure I get this over to you.
Nice. And for those that don't know, Symbaloo is basically a website that allows teachers or anybody to create a visual bookmark page with tiles and links to whatever you capture and decide to, clip off the web. So it's a really useful tool.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Chromebooks, in my opinion, right? So, Chromebooks are taking off in your state, of course, New Jersey. Delaware, Maryland, PA are picking up a little bit behind now in terms of adoption rate. But Chromebooks, the beauty of them is I can say to kids, well, we're going to use a Symbaloo, or we're going to use these Chrome apps and extensions. And I can do that because the Chromebook is really a mobile device, although it has the form factor for productivity, for online testing, and so on. But we also get this full browser experience that we're not getting on mobile devices. And that full browser experience on Chrome is intense and rich and deep. And I just think it's why Chromebooks are right now approaching, if they haven't hit 50% market share for K-12, I think in Q3.
Actually, an analogy I like to use is, you remember the cereal Kix?
Sure.
Chromebooks are like that. It's cereal that tastes good, and kids don't realize that it's good for them. And that's a Chromebook.
What's it? Daniel Pink's book, To Sell Is Human, right? A great book. Obviously, Daniel Pink's written some wonderful books, but To Sell Is Human, he talks about 9 out of 10 people in the workforce are in sales, even though they may not know it. I think educators are the biggest salespeople out there, right? We work the hardest every day to move 30 kids or maybe 120 kids to what you believe or what you think, or to adapt and acquire knowledge that you're trying to deliver to them. There's no better salesperson than a good teacher.
Oh, and we're in sales. We're performers. We wear a lot of hats. Psychologists,
sisters.
It's amazing what we do.
We all need psychologists at some point during the year, usually around March, April.
And I know that a lot of districts also they'll bring in the masseuse on PD days.
Right.
I've yet to work in a school
Google,
that does
you must
that.
Have heard about you must have heard about Google New York then, where they had the massage
yes
center in the offices, and the food's great. Yeah, it's a pretty fun place.
All right. Some parting words on Google from you, and how my listeners can get in touch with you and pick your brain if they're interested in your services, or just to bother you on Twitter.
Yeah, sure. And so I think I'm pretty easily found on Google plus Rich Kiker, and on Twitter @rkiker. And I think if I had to leave some parting words, one, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate it, Chris. I enjoy having these conversations with talented educators like yourself. And I think parting words are move fast. Don't wait. I mean, it's a motto at Google, certainly. I think the world is going so fast that we can't sit back and wait. And sometimes in education, we get lost in this bureaucracy of the meeting, and we have to have a 3-hour meeting about it, and let's bring in some outside stakeholders, and all those things are great. I don't mean to dismiss them, but I think sometimes we need to think differently about, okay, here's something that's really profound. There's these 17 wins in the win column, and these other couple of concerns that we might have. Go address the concerns and just move to it and do it. Because if we're not moving at that speed, if we're not thinking that way, I mentioned earlier this idea of competitive advantage that I really believe in. I feel like my job at Palisades is to give our kids a competitive advantage leaving 12th grade, that they have knowledge and understanding because we moved fast, that maybe they wouldn't have gotten in another district. And that, I'm probably more competitive than I should be as a father and an old man these days at 37. But I think that I want to win. I want my kids to win. I want the teachers I help to win. And I can't do that if I don't move fast. And then at the same time, hype your brand. I mean, get on social, use Twitter, use Google+, use LinkedIn and Pinterest, and tell everybody the great things you're doing. Because the more we tell the world how good education is, the harder it will be for the naysayers and the haters and the pundits to say, well, it's educators are doing bad. It's educators' fault. Education system's broken. And this just kind of monotony of poor language that's coming from the media about educators.
Sounds like you got the latest issue of Time.
Well, that's another show. Oh, boy.
Thank you so much for coming on here, Mr. Kiker.
Good stuff, man. Okay, good deal. You have a great afternoon, Chris. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And now for my EdTech Thought. For those of you that are on Twitter, I'm sure you see links each and every day with somebody tweeting out a link to paper.li/ fill in the blank. It's a website that allows anybody to kind of automatically curate what looks like an online newspaper that you can pick your topics, pull in from Twitter followers and, search a specific hashtag, and it will generate, what looks like the front page of a newspaper website and cover all sorts of topics, technology, education. It's almost like an automatically generated USA Today type page. And you can set that to curate and publish a post once a day, twice a day. There's a number of options. But what I want to know is this valuable? I'm just curious how many of us educators out there actually click on and find resources and information through somebody's paper.li post. Personally, I still, if my name pops up in one, I'll retweet it. I very rarely click through and have actually found any resources through it. So I want to know if it's valuable. If you think paper.li is valuable, I would love your thoughts, and you can share them with me through email, feedback@chrisnessy.com. Personally, I don't think it's valuable, but let me know what you think. And that's my EdTech Thought. And now for my EdTech recommendation. First up, I'd like to talk about Go Soapbox. Go Soapbox is a web-based clicker tool that's used by educators around the world to keep students engaged and gain real-time insight into student comprehension. Some of the really cool features of Go Soapbox are a confusion barometer, and this lets students indicate whether or not they are quote-unquote getting it. With Soapbox's social Q&A, students can easily submit and vote for questions, allowing the best questions to rise to the top. At any given moment, you as the teacher will know what is on your students' minds. A very cool feature. You can use it to make quizzes and other types of assessments. So I definitely suggest that you check out gosoapbox.com and let me know if it's something that works for you. But that's not the only EdTech recommendation I have for you. Also this week, I received an email from TAC, which is a company that allows you to create one-off pages, and I've talked with them previously on the House of EdTech and mentioned them on the House of EdTech, and I will link to those previous appearances in the show notes for this episode. But they released a new mobile app, and I was able to check in with Andrea Trivisano from TAC to get some more information about the new app.
Hi, this is Andrea from TAC, and I'm happy to announce TAC's new mobile apps for Android, iPhone, and iPad. Create and collaborate on the go using text, photos, and more, and customize your TAC to exactly how you want it to look. The app is perfect for quick event promotions and RSVPs, blog posts, student projects, and even helps you find awesome content. We'd love for you to download the app, and if you love it, leave us a review. Thanks, and happy tacking.
And thank you to Andrea Trivisano for sharing some information with me and all of you here on the House of EdTech. And now it's time for one of the most popular segments here on the podcast, the House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Shannon Miller. Shannon was a teacher librarian and technology integration specialist in Colorado. She encouraged young people and educators to have a voice while learning, creating, collaborating, and connecting to others globally. She has now taken on a new role as an educational consultant for Mackin Educational Resources. She's also the director of school and library strategy for In This Together Media, and she's the Executive Director of Library and Educational Services for Biblionasium. Shannon is also Skype's Education Ambassador. Miss Miller is also the author of the award-winning The Library Voice blog. She's also the mom to 3 amazing kids. You need to connect with Shannon Miller today. She is on Twitter. Her username is Shannon Miller, Miller, and her website is still vanmeterlibraryvoice.blogspot.com, and I will link to that in the show notes. Congratulations to you, Shannon. You are the House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for another episode of the House of EdTech. I am your host, Christopher Nesi. Keep the conversation going and visit my website, which is all new. New address, and the new website is just simply chrisnesi.com. CHRISNESI.com. Over on the website, you can review the show notes for this episode, and this is again number 23, and I would love your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode. You can leave a comment on the show notes, or you can email me via the show, and that's feedback@chrisnesi.com. And you can also submit audio feedback by calling the House of EdTech listener feedback line at 732-903-4869, or you can connect with me on Voxer. My username is cnesi4602. I always welcome new followers and interaction on Twitter. My username is Mr. Nesi, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech. Now, if you enjoy the House of EdTech, please rate and review the podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating and your positive review will help keep the podcast front and center for others to discover and enjoy. Before I leave you this episode, I do want to remind you again that the 1-year anniversary and the 26th episode of the House of EdTech is now 3 episodes away, and there is still plenty of time to submit a tech tool for the first annual House of EdTech Smackdown. In 2 minutes or less, I'm asking you to submit your favorite tech tool, app, or a tip that other educators need to know about. There are a few ways that you can send me your submission. You can click the SpeakPipe button on the website. You can also call the hotline, submit it through Voxer, or you can just email me a WAV file, an AIF file, or an MP3 file to feedback@chrisnesi.com. And also, real quick, here's a couple of PD opportunities coming up in the New Jersey area. EdCamp New Jersey is going to be Saturday, November 22nd. Head over to edcampnj.org for more information. EdTech NJ is going to be on Saturday, January 31st, 2015, and you can go to edtechnj.com. Be sure to come back and check out the next episode, and I'll be sharing my conversation with Jenna Klein from Class Dojo. And episode number 24 is going to be released on Sunday, November 23rd, 2014. Thank you for listening, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.